For nearly 30 years in a row now, JavaScript has been the undisputed king of web development, powering a staggering 98% of all websites since 1995. It's the equivalent of facing millennia in Elden Ring. But in coding, even with maxed out stats, you're probably still going to lose. And at the end of the day, it's just an unfair fight. And that's because JavaScript has three distinct advantages over all other web scripting languages that we'll be covering in this video. So if you're stuck deciding which programming language you should learn next, or if you just love learning more about coding, then this is the video for you. You see, JavaScript was created in 1995 by NetScape as a means of adding dynamic behavior to their boring static web pages. Now, most of us weren't alive back then, or if we were, we definitely weren't old enough to be using NetScape, but to give you an idea, this is what most of web pages looked like in the early days. Pure static HTML pages with no interactivity, just like my DMs. That was nearly 30 years ago. That means that JavaScript is coming up on its third decade of bug fixes and functionality upgrades, as well as having built a massive community around it. Think of JavaScript as the Counter-Strike equivalent of the coding world. CS was released November 1st, 2000, and 24 years later, it still dominates the FPS scene, and that's because it's nearly impossible to compete with a game, or a programming language for that matter, that has had decades worth of work put into them. Did you run into a syntax error while making up your calculator app? No problem, there's a fix for that. Did you run into a super obscure and maybe complex error while reversing a linked list filled with strings that may or may not be anagrams? No problem. Chances are that after 30 years, someone has not only ran into that issue, but also documented it and posted a solution for it. The Googleability of this language is second to none. Now, you may think of yourself as a Chad programmer that never needs to Google anything because exiting Vim for any reason other than to sleep and to eat is a sign of weakness, in which case you are correct, but at least you'll still have access to JavaScript frameworks. Not even Vim users can deny the efficiency of using React, Angular, or even Next.js. And the cherry on top is that most of these frameworks are open source, and just like JavaScript, they also have years worth of work put into them. In addition to that, you're also able to contribute to these open source projects, giving you Chad status on GitHub, as well as improving and boosting your resume. But that's not all. You see, JavaScript has some of the most simple and straightforward syntax out of any programming language. When declaring a variable, you pretty much only have two options, but somehow these options manage to cover most scenarios. You can use let to declare a variable that can be reassigned, or const to declare a variable that is set in stone, kind of like your rank in League. For instance, let greeting equal hello world to declare a string that can be manipulated, or const rank equals silver to declare a string that can't be changed. There's no need to declare doubles, floats, chars, or void variables like in C. It's all handled for you. And you may think that this would lead to less functionality and versatility, but JavaScript is actually one of the most versatile languages out there. See, JavaScript is a popular choice for creating both 2D and 3D games with libraries like Phaser and 3JS. You can use JavaScript to develop games right in the browser. Your favorite snake game, Slither.io, was made using JavaScript for both the front and the back end. It can also be used to develop mobile apps with frameworks like React and Ionic, compiling the native code for both iOS and Android platforms. Both Instagram and Facebook were made using React Native. Furthermore, using Electron, you're also able to make desktop apps with JS, HTML, and CSS. VS Code, Slack, and Discord were all made using the Electron.js framework. And as a bonus, JavaScript has started making waves in the Internet of Things space with frameworks like Johnny 5, making it possible to control hardware components like sensors, LEDs, and motors. At this point, the only thing that JavaScript can't control is your ability to get a software engineering job in this market. Now, these examples show how versatile and powerful JavaScript truly is and why it's been the most profitable programming language for the past 30 years. But in the shadow of JavaScript, there has always lurked a programming language that's just as versatile, widely used, and actually with over 4 decades of experience under its belt. If you don't already know which language I'm referencing, it's of course Python. Though JavaScript is still the superior language in terms of web development, when it comes down to data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, Python can not only compete, but actually has major advantages over JavaScript. And that's actually why we've been seeing the tides shifting this past year with Python rapidly gaining tracks on JavaScript. Python is the primary language used by OpenAI in models like GPT. Both AI research divisions for Google and Facebook that no one has ever heard of, DeepMind and Fair alike, use Python as their programming language. It also has a rich ecosystem of AI libraries and frameworks, most notably TensorFlow. It's also extremely fast at prototyping, which if you have played any AAA release lately, you'll understand that companies are pretty much only putting out prototypes at this point. That being said, when it comes to front-end development, JavaScript is still far superior. Python can't integrate with HTML and CSS quite like JS can. Also, client-side interactivity and real-time updates are much easier to implement with JavaScript. Thanks to NodeJS, server-side scripting is also easier with JavaScript. It's scalable, efficient, and enables full-stack developments using only a single programming language, something that Python can't really do so well. Also, it's not slow. As most of us know at this point, Python is not exactly the fastest language on the market. Then there's the asynchronous programming model that really pushes JavaScript over the edge. See, using promises and async and await functions, it makes it more efficient to handle concurrent operations without blocking the main execution thread. So with apps that require real-time data updates, chat applications, or any application really where scalability and responsiveness under heavy load are crucial, JavaScript's asynchronous model will have a competitive edge over most programming languages, especially Python. Just like NVIDIA is riding the AI wave, so is Python. If it continues the way it's headed, then there's a good chance that we'll see Python take over JavaScript, and that's of course assuming that JavaScript doesn't make any functionality improvements in the data science realm. Now, even if Python does become more profitable than JavaScript, it will still have the majority of the market share in regards to front-end development, as well as pretty much anything that is non-AI or data science related. So yes, Python does threaten the dominance of JavaScript, but at the end of the day, they're competing in two different marketplaces: artificial intelligence and everything else. If you're having trouble picking between the two, just know that you can't really go wrong here. It's like picking between two great games, let's say Rust and Fallout 4. Both are great options, but you're going to be playing them for completely different reasons. Or you can be a beast and just learn them both. Just be aware that the best way to learn either Python or JavaScript, or really any language for that matter, is by doing your own projects and exposing yourself to the language and everything it has to offer. The Build Your Own X repository on GitHub is one of my favorite ways for learning new languages. If you're interested in learning how to make your own web browsers, games, or even web servers, check out the Codecrafters link in the description below. These are great projects to add to your resume if you don't have any professional experience with Python or JavaScript. And as it stands, JavaScript still dominates most of the web thanks to its distinct advantages over the other scripting languages. That being said, with the rise of AI and the importance of data science, Python has soared in both popularity and profitability. If you're bullish on AI, then hedging your bets on Python is not a bad idea. For anything else though, JavaScript will likely still dominate the internet, most likely for decades to come. If you made it this far into the video, I hope I provided some sort of value to you. You're a beast, and thank you for watching. And also make sure to hit that like button down in the description. It really helps out the video, and I'll see you in the next one.